Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're plunging into, well, a really complex and vital mission today. Safeguarding children, supporting vulnerable families, it's something we all know. No single group can tackle this alone. So the real question isn't if partnerships are needed, but how do we actually build strong, effective ones with child protection agencies? Our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the most crucial insights from our sources on, creating and sustaining these alliances, basically giving you a shortcut to understanding this critical area.
And it's a huge area. I mean, just think about Child Protection Services, CPS agencies. In 2020 alone, they assessed something like 3.9 million children. That's a massive number. But their main job, often it's investigations, legal stuff, trying to keep families together if possible. Their effectiveness, though, it really jumps up significantly when they partner. They just can't cover every single need by themselves.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit more. Why are these collaborations not just like a nice to have, but absolutely essential for keeping kids safe? We're talking about that link between nonprofits and the official child protection services, right?
Yeah, absolutely essential is the right word. One key thing is that partnerships create a much, much broader safety net. You see, CPS, their mandate means they focus on those specific investigative and legal roles. Nonprofits, they step into the gaps. They provide those direct services, sometimes long-term, wraparound support, things like counseling, emergency shelters, maybe 24-hour helplines, education programs, even long-term rehab for kids dealing with trauma. It's not just splitting the work. It's offering a whole spectrum of care one agency just couldn't manage.
And you get this blend of expertise too, don't you? CPS brings the legal clout, the investigation skills, access to the courts. Then nonprofits bring in, specialized trauma therapy, the community connections, maybe more culturally sensitive ways of working. That feels really vital.
Precisely. That mix of formal authority and community-level reach is what makes it work so well. There's a really powerful example in the National Children's Alliance, the NCA, and their children's advocacy centers, Cycle Stokes. In 2021, they had, 939 centers? Served over 386,000 kids. What they do is bring everyone under one roof, CPS workers, police, prosecutors, nonprofit service providers. It makes the whole process smoother and, crucially, less traumatic for the child. Jessica Milan Miller from the Gingerbread House CAC, she put it really well. She said, "The Gingerbread House is a safe haven, a soft place to land for children who have been hurt. We are essential first responders." And Sheriff Steve Prater called CACs a godsend for children, families, and the entire criminal justice system. So the real insight there is how centralizing things, even with diverse groups, creates a system that's just more compassionate and effective.
That CAC model sounds incredibly effective. But I imagine bringing all those different players together. There must be hurdles. And maybe more broadly, how do organizations even start building these partnerships? It feels like it could be overwhelming trying to connect with agencies that might have very different ways of working.
Oh, it definitely is daunting. And yeah, that's often where things stall. The first step, maybe surprisingly, isn't just networking. It's actually deep research. And I mean, really digging in beyond just looking at their website, you need to look into a potential partner's actual policies, their stated values, sure, but also their real safeguarding practices. So review their annual reports, mission statements, any public records you can find. Really try to get a feel for how they operate internally. And here's a critical question that comes up. What can you learn from how they've collaborated before? Their track record. It's super important to try and understand their history, maybe even reach out carefully to other nonprofits who've worked with them. You can get invaluable insights that way. Are they reliable, flexible, truly committed to shared goals?
Right, so you do your homework first. Then it's about finding that alignment, matching up missions and goals. It sounds straightforward, but I guess the trick is looking inward first. You really have to know your own organization's mission, your strengths, what you bring to the table, before you try and build that shared vision with someone else.
Exactly. That's a key point. Sometimes partnerships stumble because an organization hasn't really nailed down its own core purpose or limitations. Success really does seem to hinge on aligning around, say, prevention strategies, and also really respecting what each partner does best. That helps avoid, stepping on each other's toes, those territorial disputes that can sink things. The real breakthrough often happens when you find where your non-negotiables overlap naturally with theirs. That builds a really strong foundation. And another crucial piece is involving families in designing and delivering services. They're the ones experiencing it after all.
Okay, so you've done the research, found the alignment. How do you make it official? Because our sources really emphasize that formal agreements are kind of the backbone here.
They absolutely are the backbone. But, and this is important, They shouldn't be some generic cookie-cutter template. They need to be developed together collaboratively. Like one Head Start director said, they had to meet them where they were and provide them with what it was that they needed most. It has to fit the specific partners. So these agreements, they need to spell things out clearly. Roles, responsibilities, who you're trying to serve, commitments to training, how you'll handle disagreements, confidentiality. It's detailed stuff. There was a great anecdote from a child care coordinator, Salem Kaiser Teen Parent Program. She said something like, we probably went back about 15 different times, sat down, went through the contract, back and forth. I really felt like we were a team. That back and forth, it shows they're building real trust, real shared ownership. It's not just paperwork. And you definitely need to build in ways to review and update the agreement regularly. Things change.
Okay, so you've put in all that effort, you built the partnership, got the agreement. Now, how do you keep it alive and strong? Is it just about having meetings, or is there more to it?
Oh, it's definitely more than just meetings. The regular contact is key. Consistent communication and active collaboration are huge. Yeah, routine meetings help, but also think about things like shared information systems. Anything that helps break down those organizational silos, where information gets stuck in one department. And using different tools for communication, formal reports, sure, but also quick check-ins, shared updates. What's really interesting here is the focus on active listening and making sure communication is genuinely accessible. That means clear language, using interpreters if needed, materials for different reading levels. It has to work for everyone involved. As one source put it, communication and support from leadership helps to transform policy into practice. So it needs buy-in from the top, and it needs to be clear and accessible all the way down.
And joint training sounds like a really smart way to build that shared understanding, too. Getting staff from different organizations in the same room, learning together.
Absolutely. It builds teamwork, strengthens relationships. There was a good example from Massachusetts, the Collaborative for Educational Services back in 2014. They created toolkits and training specifically for child protection staff and early educators. It really improved how those two systems work together. Cross-training like that, it lets staff really understand each other's jobs, the pressures they're under, their different perspectives. That leads to smoother collaboration, better problem solving on the ground, and ultimately, better results for kids because everyone's more on the same page.
And involving families and communities directly seems like another layer that makes these partnerships even stronger. They bring insights agencies just don't have, right? And help build wider support. Our sources even mentioned compensating families for their time, which seems important, and the power of youth-led programs. Jack Ozinger, a youth council member, highlighted that.
Yeah, and connecting that to the bigger picture, one source talked about moving from dynamic leaders to dynamic systems so that collaboration is in the DNA of the system. That's powerful. It means setting up real feedback loops with families and communities, actively listening to what they say, and being flexible, ready to adapt based on what the community actually needs. When the community feels like a genuine partner, not just a recipient of services, that's when these collaborations become truly embedded and sustainable.
Okay, switching gears slightly. For those interested in the tech side of things, how are digital tools changing the game for these partnerships? Is it just efficiency or something more?
Well, digital tools are becoming really crucial, kind of like the operational glue holding these complex partnerships together. They're designed to, yes, streamline things, make operations smoother, but also protect sensitive data, which is critical, and just generally make communication easier. The idea is to free up the teams to focus more on the actual child protection work, less on the admin hassle. Think of them as like a central hub for multi-agency efforts.
So what does that look like in practice? Features like centralized data.
Exactly. Centralized data management is huge. It gets rid of everyone juggling different spreadsheets or files scattered everywhere. Huge potential for error there. Then you have things like integrated messaging systems. Farrell Burton from Hope Project International mentioned how these were instrumental in connecting sponsors with children. Real-time, secure communication. And secure document sharing is key too, with role-based access, encryption, making sure the right people see the right info safely. And the impact can be pretty significant. Take a tool like Help You Sponsor, which focuses on sponsorship management, but the principles apply more broadly. They report automating about 90% of those management tasks. That saves organizations, they estimate, over 20 hours a week. That's huge. Over 1,500 users managing millions in donations, seeing big increases in sponsorships. And Danny Cunningham from 4GAP and Africa Ministries put it really well. Being able to turn the daily operating duties over to a program was an answer to prayer. I'm sure more children were able to get an education because of what Help You Sponsor added. So beyond just sponsorship, you have to wonder, how else could these automation principles help in other complex collaborations between agencies?
It really makes you think. These tools simplify the admin, boost communication, keep data secure, and ultimately that frees up people and money for the core mission, protecting kids. And it's good to know there are different options, even free ones, making this tech more accessible. So wrapping up this deep dive, the message seems really clear. Building strong partnerships for child safety, it takes serious commitment. It takes open communication and everyone focusing together on the kids. The key strategies we pulled out: really thorough research on partners, aligning those missions deeply, formalizing things with collaborative agreements, keeping communication constant and accessible, training together, and bringing families and communities right into the center of it all.
And the scale of collaboration needed is significant. That Child Welfare Community Collaborations Initiative, their grantees typically work with about 20 different organizations. 20! It really underlines that core belief. Successful outcomes for children depend on strong partnership working between parents, carers, and the practitioners. And while, yes, collaborative partnerships are essential, another source rightly points out they present complexities that must be navigated. So it's not a one-time setup. It requires ongoing evaluation, being ready to adapt, to keep things working as needs change. Continuous improvement is key.
So here's a final thought for you listening in. We've seen how powerful these collaborative systems can be for protecting children. Thinking about the principles we've discussed, the deep research, the shared goals, formalizing connections, ongoing communication, learning together, community engagement. How might you apply those ideas? How could you foster stronger, more impactful collaborations in your own work or even your life? Maybe completely outside of child protection. What would putting collaboration into the DNA look like in your world?